Well, hello again. Yet another Sunday. Another week has flown by. It's the 19th of October 2025. And it's 10:45 in the morning. And tomorrow, of course, is Danny Sheehan's second global Egg on Face Day. He's going to be saying, well, you know, disclosure is much more than actually disclosing anything. ET related anyway, because there's nothing to disclose, just as there was last year. So remember to check out Danny Sheehan's Global Egg on Face Day tomorrow, 20th of October. He's going to be up there telling everybody everything other than we've got something to disclose. So, what have I seen this week in the bullshit world of ET is coming here and crashing here? Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. I've seen a couple of new fake whistleblowers. I'll get to the detail in this video. So I think more and more people are coming to the conclusion that this is all science fiction rubbish. There'll be even more after seeing Sheehan and his mob and Jim Garrett is his name, is it? So it's Garrison, yeah. Telling everybody that, well, we've actually got nothing to disclose, but we're going to go ahead with the Global Disclosure Day anyway, because if we say it often enough, people might believe it. But what's happening, of course, is the inverse is true. The more people hype it up, then nothing happens. The more people go, this is all rubbish, you know, why am I wasting my time with this bullshit? More and more people every day are coming to that conclusion. Rightly so, because that's what it is. Okay, so I was watching a UFO UAP fanboy panel YouTube channel on YouTube last week, and even they were laughing at Michael Battista's alien video. You know, remember the ridiculously overhyped video shown by Ross Coulthart? He had Mr. Battista in there, Michael Battista, and he was saying this is going to change everything. This is the proof all the skeptics have been asking for. And when it was shown, it was beyond pathetic. You know, it had every prerequisite for an alien video, an alien that purports to show a video that purports to show an extraterrestrial. You know, it was completely out of focus, poorly lit, no sound, monochromatic. You could barely see anything at all. It was just ridiculous. You know, it's the sort of thing that would fool someone like who's the guy with the rubber alien? He wanted to come on here and then he chickened out. What's it? Stewart. John Stewart. It's the sort of guy that it's the sort of rubbish that would fool John Stewart. So, you know, even the fanboys were laughing at it. You know, there's 4 of them on this YouTube channel that specialises in this sort of stuff, and it had some fanboys on there, and even they were laughing at it. You know, and Coulthard's credibility, of course, is already in the toilet with all this nonsense he comes out with, all this bombshell information that's everything but. Now, when I came out here, I looked at the weather radar, and it showed there was a band of rain about 130 kilometres away. Now, it's been showering this morning and it's cloudy above me, but I thought, well, I should be able to squeak my video in between these showers that are going through, but I just felt some drops on my head. Unless the wind's dropping it off the tree, maybe. Anyway, I may have to stop it and then restart it inside. So, you know, if it comes to an abrupt halt, it will immediately restart with a different background. You know, so don't put your popcorn back in the cupboard. Whoops. Yeah. get to that. Now, Ross Coulthart overhyped this video, and a lot of people saw it and fell about laughing, including a lot of the fanboys. You know, they suddenly the penny dropped. You know, it's all bullshit. This is nonsense. You can't see anything at all. And the fanboys on the panel show were saying pretty much the same thing. Although what they did say, which I thought was quite funny, was there was one or two of them saying, "Oh yeah, but the video's rubbish. Obviously, it doesn't show an alien, but you know, we shouldn't discount his story." You know, we shouldn't discount his experience, the experience he relates. Well, of course we should. It's drivel, and it's a very obvious fake video. You know. It's got all the prerequisites of a fake alien video. You know, poorly lit, no definition, no sound. Out of focus, light-coloured blobs against some out of focus, dark-coloured blobs. You know, Coulthart told us this was game-changing. Well, it probably was, because an awful lot of people that used to think there was something to this are now going to think there isn't. So it'd be game-changing in that regard. Well done, Mr. Coulthart. Oh yeah, Coulthart also said this was the video that was silenced the skeptics. And it was worse than pathetic, really, you know. I mean, yeah. So, you know, the fanboys didn't dismiss Battista's story, but they said his video was rubbish. I would have thought the two went hand in hand, personally. You know, if someone's trying to kid you on with a fake video, why on earth would you take anything else they've got to say seriously? It's like Jaime Maussan, you know, with his fake aliens. How many times has he done that before? You can't take the man seriously. You know, I think I need some of the mushrooms that these guys have been eating. I think he's, you know, you can't dismiss his story, but his video's rubbish. Put a line through Mr. Battista. I've said it before, you know. Remember, he told us he can summon an ET spacecraft to land at his feet anytime he likes. You know, but he just chooses not to do this, not to demonstrate this amazing ability. Now, if I could summon an alien spacecraft to land at my feet, I'd do it right now, and I'd film it, and I'd film the interaction with the aliens, you know, just to prove my point. But Mr. Battista doesn't want to do that, you know. He doesn't want to demonstrate this amazing ability. He chooses not to collect a Nobel Prize for proving we're not alone in the cosmos with tangible evidence. He's choosing not to do that. Why bother doing that, you know? Mr. Battista. The last thing Mr. Battista wants is a Nobel Prize, global fame, with all the talk shows, all the podcasts, you know, keynote speaker fees, the Nobel Prize money, of course, and his name in the history books forever. You know, as the person that proved with tangible evidence that we are not alone in the cosmos. Heaven forbid he should want any of that. I think someone should ask Michael Battista if he's the Michael Tim Phillips, you know, the ex-director of Arrow, deputy director of Arrow, told us about. You know, Tim Phillips told us about this dangerous nutcase he wouldn't want near his family, whose name was Michael. Was it Michael Battista? I thought it was Borland, but it could be Battista, couldn't it? There's a lot of nutters in this game. So, yeah. So if you see this video, Mr. Battista, maybe you could let us know in the comments below. Are you the Michael that Tim Phillips was talking about when he said that this guy was a dangerous lunatic and he didn't want them anywhere near his family? I think he was so scared of Michael that he resigned immediately, or retired immediately, and went and hid under the table, Mr. Phillips, didn't he? So, Mr. Battista tells us he signed NDAs with Skywatcher. He can't talk about Skywatcher. Can't talk about Skywatcher. And that, of course, is probably because he knows Skywatcher is complete and utter bullshit, and if he says anything against Skywatcher, he won't be getting his cut of any money they manage to suck in with all their rubbish. Oh no, tiptoe around that subject. Doesn't want to know anything about Skywatcher. Can't talk about Skywatcher. So he can't tell us all about his psionic escapades with Skywatcher. You know, psionic escapades straight out of 1950s science fiction. Why wouldn't we want to hear that, Mr. Battista? You know, probably for the same reason you don't want your Nobel Prize. All of these people are clowns, aren't they? They're just clowns. A complete waste of time. I saw another YouTube channel that peddles a lot of this UAP drivel, and he's got a thumbnail showing an image of Tim Burchett with a caption, "I've seen beings." Clickbait, if ever I've seen it. The guy should be ashamed of himself. But he is trying to make YouTube his job. You know, he doesn't want to go back to working antisocial hours and all that sort of stuff in an ordinary job. He wants to sit on a beach and take some money in from, get a living out of YouTube. Now, the problem with that is, as soon as somebody wants to make it their job, they have to keep producing stuff. They have to get clicks, they have to get ad revenue, and they'll put out any old bullshit in order for you to click on that video and watch it so they get their Google ad money. And this is one of them. You know, Tim Burchett did not say, "I've seen beings." When you actually watch the video, and I was stupid enough to do that, it's Tim Burchett saying that, you know, he's heard sworn testimony from people that say, "I've seen beings." So he hasn't seen beings personally, he's relating what he's been told. It's the same recurring theme. I've been told. You know, I've got no personal experience of this stuff. I've been told. People have sworn. You know, it's sworn testimony. You know, that people swear to tell the truth all the time and then just do anything but that on a regular basis, don't they? They swear, I'll tell the truth, you know, and then just lie through the whole whatever it is. Now, so clickbait, that one, definitely clickbait. I mean, I know the guy's got to make a living, but that's scraping the barrel, I think, doing this sort of thing. That bombshell news, and it never is. There is no bombshell news with this subject. It's all rubbish. Now, sworn testimony is, of course, not tangible evidence. Anyone can make up anything and swear to tell the truth and relate that story. It's happening all. We've seen it in Congress how many times already, you know, with Borland and Nakatelli and these other clowns. All trying to get on the podcast, TV show, book writing, keynote speaker bandwagon. Now, Burchett then goes on to tell us about this, and I mentioned this in the last video, so sorry if this is getting repetitive, but this was mentioned again. As far as I know, he mentioned it again. He tells us he was told about something, he was told, again, recurring theme, about something as big as a football field travelling at 200 miles an hour underwater, and says, "That's no fish." Torpedoes are nicknamed fish, aren't they? So it could have been a fish, mechanical fish. I doubt Mr. Burchett is aware of the Russian Shkval supercavitating rocket-propelled torpedo that can do 200 knots underwater, which is 230 miles an hour, 370 kilometers an hour. I mentioned this in the last video. These weapons have been around since the 70s and may produce an acoustic signature that's larger than their real size due to the method of propulsion. I'll leave a link to the Shkval supercavitating rocket-propelled torpedo below. It could, of course, as well be that the stories, you know, the Americans have tracked these things and what on earth is that, going that fast underwater? That's just not possible. And the stories got more and more embellished over time, and the thing was never seen to be as big as a football field. You know, if it was, then it's probably travelling so fast and creating some sort of acoustic signature that makes it look a hell of a lot bigger than it actually is. But there certainly are man-made devices that can travel at over 200 miles an hour underwater. They've been around since the 70s. Mr. Burchett, get yourself an education. So I'll leave a link to the Schwal supercavitating rocket-propelled torpedo below. Oops. Okay, and I also saw Lou, would you like to see an image of a chandelier Elizondo? He appeared on a channel that loves sucking up to him. Goodness knows why. I mean, he's obviously a fake whistleblower. All he ever says is, well, I can't talk about that, you know. NDAs, security clearances, you know. Not much of a whistleblower, is he? Gave it all up to tell us everything about spill the beans. No beans have been spilt. Mr. Elizondo has said F.A. All he ever says is, well, I really can't talk about it. He's got to put some intrigue in. He's got books to sell, you know. He's got a talk circuit. He's got to go around, you know, and show people images of chandeliers and crop irrigation circles. And this YouTube guy loves him. He has him on there. His heart's going up the screen when Elizondo's on there. Pathetic, isn't it, really? So, so now Elizondo tells us there's a hell of a lot going on right now behind the scenes in Washington. In Washington, DC. Of course, he can't talk about it. Wow, that makes a change, doesn't it? Lou Elizondo knowing something he can't talk about. Oh. He told the fanboy YouTube presenter, host, that he was making a huge difference. No YouTuber is making a huge difference. The only difference he might be making is to Elizondo's book sales. Maybe you know, maybe someone will watch that and say, well, maybe we should book Elizondo, you know, and we'll get him in and have a chat. Where he can do a presentation. He's not a ufologist, but he can do a presentation all about UFOs, UAPs. A ufologist. Never has been, never will be. Oh dear me. And I reckon Elizondo considers this guy a useful idiot, you know, because this guy's always sucking up to Elizondo, hearts on the screen, you know, telling everybody what's going to happen if they bad mouth Elizondo and these other fake whistleblowers. Got to watch out, you know. Got to watch out for the skin deeps, in the words of the Stranglers. They'll sidle up to you and then stick a knife in you. So, you know, I think Elizondo considers this guy a useful idiot. You know, this guy's all over him like a puppy. Of course, Elizondo loves going on his channel. You know, it's good for his podcasts, profile, and, you know, his keynote speaker and all this sort of stuff. Gets his face out there. He loves this guy, and this guy is too dumb to realise what Elizondo's doing. He's using him as a useful idiot. Anyway, Elizondo says, are we losing disclosure? Not at all. Well, no, you're not losing disclosure, because there was never anything to disclose. If there's nothing to disclose, you can hardly lose disclosure, can you? So he's right about that, at least. Oh dear. The problem is that all we get is conversation. You know, he said there's conversations going on in Washington DC. There's never any tangible evidence. It's just conversation, just people talking about it. You know. And of course, Elizondo loves this guy pushing his science fiction rubbish. I mean, put up or shut up, Elizondo. You know, the same goes for all of them. Put up or shut up. You know, we're getting stories, and more stories. They're meaningless without tangible evidence to support them. Even one of them. It's science fiction rubbish. It's a monumental claim. It needs monumental evidence. We're not getting any. We're not even getting poor evidence. Well, I suppose the Nimitz videos, the debunked Nimitz videos, are poor evidence, aren't they? That sort of thing is poor evidence. Battista's video is poor evidence. I don't think it would even crawl into that category, to be perfectly honest. So yeah, I mean it's all just dramatised. I mean, Elizondo had a unidentified TV show, and I was watching a bit of an episode the other day. I can't watch much of that guy, and it's just dramatised, embellished drivel. Well, it's classified, you know. Obviously, if that's classified, we won't go near that, you know. This is a whistleblower that wants to tell us all about it. Put a line through Elizondo. Put a line through all of these bloody clowns. You know, Grusch, all of them. Remember Grusch threatened Borland to be heard by Congress. And Borland said he did a hand-drawn sketch of a flying triangle. It was put in a sap and proves conclusively we're not alone in the cosmos. What sort of bullshit is that? You know, cheese and pickle sandwich would know that is not evidence to support us not being alone in the cosmos. Saw old mate Coulthart tell us there's going to be a video coming out from Skywatcher. The outfit that's supposedly getting their evidence peer-reviewed. Yeah, right. I wonder who they consider their peers to be. Who do they consider their peers to be? Skywatcher. Can you imagine? So, you know, Battista, is he one of their peers? Carl Crusher, you know, with his paranormal rooster man. Is he one of their peers? You know, I won't be holding my breath for that one. You know, if they do have a video coming out, I can guarantee it's not going to show a summoned ET spacecraft landing at their feet with high definition images and sound and all that sort of stuff. It's a little dot in the distance, flock of birds, you know. Yeah, remember, you know, Battista says he can summon these at any time. He chooses not to demonstrate that. Psionics, of course, comes from 1950s science fiction magazines. Oh dear. Coulthart tells us they're still using their electromechanical dog whistle for summoning craft. Now I thought that thing, that's a very obvious theatrical prop. I'll leave a link to the video I did about it below, just in case you haven't seen it. I thought that had disappeared, you know, it had been sold for scrap, stolen, before Congress could demand its surrender for examination, as it would be determined to be a pile of junk, a rolled up roller door with a coil of reticulation pipe wound around it. Very quickly. It'll be revealed to be nothing more than a theatrical prop by anyone with a decent technical background that would reveal it as nothing more than a theatrical prop within minutes. Yeah. So of course they had to make the thing disappear. They couldn't have that thing around. As soon as there was a whiff of subpoena in the air, or people wanting to examine the dog whistle or get a demonstration of the dog whistle, a couple of YouTubers I think have asked for a demo, Coulthart has asked for a demo, they can't have a demo, it's all secret. Because it's rubbish. They know it's a theatrical prop. They know if anybody with a technical background has a look at it, they will reveal it to be a theatrical prop within minutes. That's why it had to disappear. Probably been cut up into little tiny pieces so nobody can get their hands on it, and reveal it to be a pile of junk. Codged together for effect. Skywatcher's electromechanical dog whistle. Now, Coulthart also introduces us to Joshua Shelton, who tells us he worked at Area 2 at Nellis Air Force Base and was present during an alarming series of paranormal UAP events there. He saw shadow beings and tells us a huge flying disc silently overflew the nuclear storage depot and then crashed. Now, Mr. Shelton had previously told Coulthart this story and completely forgotten about it. I mean, it's the sort of thing you'd forget about, isn't it? You know, I mean, if I saw a huge alien spacecraft hovering over my house and then it flew away and then I saw it crash, it's the sort of thing I would forget, well, in a day or two. He'd completely forgotten about it, and during the interview with Coulthart had to remind him of that story, and he went, oh, how could I have forgotten that? Yeah, that's right, yeah, huge. Huge flying disc silently flew over the nuclear weapons storage area. Oh, and then crashed. Thanks for reminding me, Mr. Coulthart. You know, I mean, I'd completely forgotten about that one. Mate, where's my pencil? I better write that down so I can put it in the book. It's obviously drivel, isn't it? So, oh dear. An ET spacecraft coming here and crashing here is just as ludicrous as Mr. Shelton forgetting about seeing it crash. It's nonsense, isn't it? It's absolute hogwash. Both are equally as ludicrous. You know, do you think you would forget about seeing something like that? If you saw an alien spacecraft, I saw a huge disc fly over my head, it crashed, you know, a couple of 100 metres away, a few 100 metres away, whatever it was. You know, do you think I could forget that? For a start, I'd run over and have a look, check it out. People say, oh, I can't go anywhere with radiation, you know. That's not part of this story, but aliens would know how to handle radiation, you think? Oh dear. They also know how to handle their spacecraft. They're not going to come here and crash. Now, when so you're not going to believe this. This is unbelievable. The personnel from the base actually went to the crash site to see what they could find, and there was nothing there. Nothing at all there. Not even Diana Pasulka's cans of baked beans. Or baked bean cans. I think they were empty, weren't they? Not even baked bean cans as seen by Diana Pasulka. Nothing. Zero tangible evidence to support his ludicrous story. Put a line through Mr. Shelton. Next caller, please. These clouds are moving fairly briskly, so I may get rained on before the video is finished. Now, this is another guy that really... so that's one of the new whistleblowers, Mr. Shelton. This is another one, Mr. Jozak. Skywatcher psionic asset. Remember, no such thing as psionics. The term psionic comes from 1950s science fiction. He used to call himself a Lightbringer on social media. Now, he's a professional tree pruner. You know, he's he's one of these guys that puts on the spiky boots, got the belt round the tree. He's got the belt with a chainsaw on it, and he goes up the tree and he prunes the trees. Professional tree pruner, Mr. Jozak. Now, he tells us that between 2005 and 2010, when he was aged between 9 and 14, he had personally interfaced with NHI and UAP directly. So when he was a kid, he was interfacing with NHI and UAPs directly. He could project his consciousness into ET spacecraft and recovered materials and then access a suite of commands. It doesn't tell us what those commands were. Essentially, capabilities to do certain things. No details, of course. Oh, including piloting. So including piloting an alien spacecraft. You know, someone should have sort of stuck him in a Cessna and see if he could fly that. You know, that'd be considerably easier, you'd think, wouldn't you? So, including piloting. But ultimately, the story is not about piloting some UAP with your mind. It's about consciousness. What is consciousness? Why can we interface with these things? Nobody can, of course. Can you consciously use your conscience to interface with ETs? You know, why can we interface with these things? Then he's asked by the interviewer, do you have material that supports these claims? Mr. Jozak replies, I have tons of material, linearly autobiographical records that will support my claims. In other words, no, he doesn't. He doesn't have any material that supports his claims. Autobiographical records means records he's written about himself. Autobiographical claims. They're completely meaningless. He throws in the word linearly because he thinks it sounds good. Like Coulthart, you know, he uses words that he thinks sounds good, like thermonuclear. You know. What's the other one he used? You know, synthetic aperture radar. He loves that term. Now, he's wrong, of course. As I've said before, consciousness is not tangible. Put a line through anyone claiming a consciousness connection to UAPs or ETs. He's apparently a Skywatcher psionic asset. Skywatcher can't produce any tangible evidence of ETs coming here, so they have to fabricate something. That can't be proven to keep the fanboys happy and the funding coming in. It's pathetic nonsense. What do I think? I think Mr. Jozak is fed up with putting his spiked boots on, lugging a chainsaw up into trees and cutting the branches off. That's what I think. Put a line through Mr. Jozak FFS. Seems Congress has been smart enough to do that. Mr. Jozak tells us he and Jake Barber have put out lots of testimony on the Skywatcher channel, or Skywatcher social media, but Congress still haven't contacted him. Well, you could knock me down with a feather. I really can't imagine why. Congress haven't contacted me either. He tells us there are very uncomfortable truths regarding the past programmatic nature of the program itself, that he never asked for any of it. He was scouted from within the school system through the Gifted and Talented Education Network. Now remember, this is a guy that prunes trees for a living. He was scouted from within the school system through the Gifted and Talented Education Network. Where's my chainsaw? He puts the spiky boots on and climbs trees and prunes them for a living. You know, he doesn't work for NASA or any of the big defence contractors in an engineering or scientific capacity. He's a tree pruner. You know, he tells us back in 2005, that's when he was 9 years old, he began a relationship with a psychologist. Now, this does not surprise me. Now, this I am inclined to believe. It indicates psychological problems at a young age. He tells us he was separated from his classmates, so his psychological problems must have been significant. You know, if the kid's taken out of class because he's got psychological problems, they've got to be pretty significant. The school recommended to his parents to arrange for a psychologist to see him outside school hours. So we're not just talking about a school psychologist here, we're talking about real psychological treatment. He saw a psychologist for a few years, during which he claims he was passing through the outer areas of a psionic program. His psychologist, of course, would have just thought he was delusional, as do I. He tells us his parents were told he needed mental health treatment, perhaps unsurprisingly. So he was sent to a lockdown, scan-in, scan-out mental health facility, so he was sectioned, basically. He was there against his will. But of course it wasn't a mental health facility at all. It was just a cover for a much larger program where he interacted with non-human intelligence and its associated technology. Maybe he really believed that. Maybe he's delusional enough to believe that. FFS, you know, ages 9 to 14 years old. This drivel would insult the intelligence of a cheese and pickle sandwich. Just another nutter trying to jump on the ET bandwagon. You know, he wants to get in front of Congress, he wants the podcasts, you know, he wants the book, he wants the keynote speaker fees and the TV shows. You know, that's what he wants. Anyone checking out the facility, of course he doesn't tell us what this facility was, you know, the name and address of this facility. It's cunningly disguised as a nut house. I bet it's an excellent disguise though. I bet if anybody went there to investigate this, they would not be able to tell the difference between this place and a real nut house. You know, they'd even have real nutters in rooms inside just to fool you, you know, if you went for a wander around in there. Or drawing pictures on the walls with their crap, you know. Throwing bricks at people. Hey, don't forget to let me out, will you? I'm perfectly sane. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll get right on that. It's going to be a real nut house, isn't it? So that's obviously why Congress haven't contacted him. They think he's just another nutcase. The presenter of the YouTube channel that showed Mr. Jozak making these claims tells us he thinks there's something to it. But he also tells us he's had similar experiences whilst experimenting with hallucinogenic drugs. As would anybody experimenting with hallucinogenic drugs, I suspect. He also tells us that a woman has claimed she can do a human... she can do a human spine transplant without anaesthetic. And she can do this procedure with a Swiss Army knife. It's that easy. And this fellow would not dismiss this claim. FFS, perhaps unsurprisingly, I would. Now, the fellow with the hallucinogenic drugs was showing a clip from an interview with Mr. Jozak. So the guy with the hallucinogenic drugs, I just want to make this clear, was not the guy interviewing Mr. Jozak originally. The original interviewer was not the guy that mucked around with hallucinogenic drugs. The guy with the hallucinogenic drugs has got his own YouTube channel, and he showed a clip from that interview. Just to be clear on that. Well, I suspect there's a lot of mushrooms and hallucinogenic drugs in this I can communicate with aliens nonsense. Now, there's a new science fiction movie coming out on November the 21st this year. So a month and a bit away. What's the date today? Yeah, just over a month away. Now, it's called The Age of Disclosure. You'll see most of the usual suspects telling you they've been told ET's coming here. I've been told, you know, sworn testimony. Someone told me, you know, I haven't seen any tangible evidence. You'll see all the usual suspects telling you that. Now, no personal experience, of course. They just choose to believe what they've been told. Jay Stratton tells us he's seen with his own eyes non-human craft and non-human beings. Got books out, of course, Jay Stratton, or a book. He's also told us he was followed home by a Wolverine werewolf from Skinwalker Ranch. Yes, really credible chap is Mr. Stratton. Of course, he's got a book to sell, and he has zero tangible evidence to support his fanciful claims. You know, they're also going to show the long debunked Nibbits videos, the Tic Tac and the Go Fast and all that sort of stuff. Debunked nonsense. Lou Elizondo's in it. No doubt he'll be showing a picture of a chandelier and a couple of crop irrigation circles. And he's going to be spewing his usual rubbish, and well, you know, it's classified. I'd love to tell you, but I can't talk about that, you know. Ridiculous rubbish, isn't it? You know, it's just, it really insult the intelligence of a cheese and pickle sandwich. You know, Chris Mellon is there, you know, the #1 party balloon man. Remember the first congressional hearing? You know, oh, look at this amazing UAP, you know, and it turned out to be a #1 party balloon full of helium. You know, these people are clueless, fanboys. Oh dear. Now, Mellon tells us it's the biggest discovery in human history. It isn't, of course, because nothing's been discovered, has it? It's just more and more science fiction stories that get more and more embellished every time they're told. You know, you'll hear all kinds of science fiction rubbish presented on this The Age of Disclosure science fiction movie. Most of it will be lifted from the X-Files, the television series, the X-Files. You know, all of these people are science fiction fans. Perhaps unsurprisingly, you know what you won't get out of this, and I wouldn't personally. You couldn't pay me to watch it, but I think they're going to expect people to pay to watch this. They're calling it a documentary, but it certainly isn't. There's zero tangible evidence produced to support even one of their fanciful yarns. You know, so if you like science fiction movies, go and see it. You know, get some popcorn and sit down and watch a science fiction movie. That's what you'll be doing. You know, you won't be, well, with or without popcorn. What you won't be watching is a documentary. Anything that says, this happened, here's the tangible evidence to prove it happened. That's what you won't see. All you'll hear is story after story after story after story, most of those second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth hand, that these people have chosen to believe, or that they tell you they believe, they've chosen to believe. You know, because it enhances what they're doing, their podcasts, their keynote speaker fees, you know, their TV programs. The whole thing is built on bullshit, all of it. So, you know, with, as I've said earlier, you know, with a claim as monumental as ET is coming here and crashing here and their technology is being reverse engineered, or I've seen alien beings, you know, with my own eyes. I've been on an alien spacecraft, I think was a claim made by Stratton. As well as him seeing an alien spacecraft, I'm sure I've seen him in the past say he's been on board one. You know, I wonder if he's been spent any time at that institute that Mr. Jozak spent some time at when he was a kid. You know, you need tangible evidence to support something like that. There's no tangible evidence to support one of their fanciful yarns. Stories and stories and stories and stories and stories just do not cut the mustard. We're long past put up or shut up time. Put up or shut up. Put up or STFU. FFS. How many people's time is being wasted on this rubbish? You know, so if I got it, I wouldn't even watch it for free on YouTube, to be honest with you, because I've seen a couple of clips from it and it's pathetic. The usual suspects trying to screw some more money out of the gullible fanboys. That's all it is. Next caller, please. That's the science fiction film The Age of Disclosure, where they will be disclosing nothing whatsoever to do with ET visiting this planet. ET's not visiting this planet, they never have. Now, the ridiculous Soul Foundation, the Shit Out of Luck Foundation, are having their symposium in Italy from the 24th to the 27th of this month. 3 days with a pie-in-the-sky nonsense, but a nice junket for those involved. You know, there'll be some expense accounts being milked there, I suspect. You know, lots of wine, lots of good food. You know, maybe some hookers. You know, put on the expenses, personal services on the Visa card. Oh dear. No doubt there'll be more proposed procedures to apply when ETs really do turn up. A complete waste of time and money, because ETs aren't going to be coming here. If they do, they'll wipe us out biologically and take the planet. They're not going to come and say hello. You know, how are you doing? Let me tell you how you can fly around the galaxy and come and visit us and potentially destroy us. You know, here's all the technical and scientific information you'll need to be able to do that. Is that what they really think? I'd like to see Gary Nolan stand up in front of all those academics, presumably there's going to be plenty of academics at the Soul Foundation, and tell his aliens around his bed when he was a kid for weeks on end, looking through the windows every night for weeks on end. And when he was an adult, he was just about to start his job as a professor at Princeton or Stanford, wherever he is. And this alien appeared in his bedroom and communicated with him telepathically. I'd love to see him stand in front of the Soul crowd, audience, and tell that story. I'd love to see their reaction. Now, of course, Nolan's backpedaling like mad. Well, yeah, it might have just been a dream, you know. Same dream every night for 3 weeks or whatever it was, for weeks on end. Now, oh dear. So it would be good to see Gary Nolan relate this story to the Soul Foundation audience in a couple of weeks' time. No, next week. When was it? from the 24th to the 27th, next week. Next weekend. Friday and the next weekend. So it'd be interesting to see if he was laughed off the stage or people walked out. I mean, I'd certainly walk out if I paid money to go and see that. Yeah. Now Gary Nolan saying it must have just been a dream. It could have. That's right, not must have. It could have just been a dream. Could have just been a dream. You know, because Nolan has since told us, when he said he was 100% sure ETs are coming to Earth at the SALT conference. Do you remember that? He was at the SALT conference and the guy asked him, you know, Dr. Nolan, how confident are you? Or what percentage would you put on, you know, ETs visiting this planet? Nolan said 100%. Oh, it's 100%. Now, he's obviously backpedaled on that because not long after that, people picked up on that, obviously, and, you know, he was saying, he said, oh, he was interviewed by somebody else. Of course, he said, of course, I don't know that as fact. That's just my opinion, you know. So, so he doesn't know that as fact. He's telling us that he didn't have ETs round his bed for weeks on end when he was a kid. There was no ETs looking through the windows at him when he was a kid, you know, because he doesn't know as fact ETs are coming to Earth. He's told us that in his own words. It's just his opinion. He believes ETs are coming to Earth. He doesn't know they are. Sort of kicks his ETs in the bedroom, you know, when he was a kid, and the ET in his bedroom when he was an adult, stories into touch, really, doesn't it, you know? It just shows you, you know, these people just, they get engrossed in this, you know, they dive into this, and before you know it, they're believing their own bullshit. And then as soon as they get a bit of pushback, they think, oh, maybe I've gone a bit too far. Yeah, maybe that was just a dream, eh? Well, I don't know, they're coming here as fact. You know, when I said they're coming here, I know that they're coming here 100%, it's just my opinion. So is he going to be telling the Soul Foundation that? I suspect the Shit Out of Luck Foundation symposium will be just more of the same. Plenty of opinions, wine and pizza, zero tangible evidence. Again, you couldn't pay me enough money to sit through 3 days of that drivel. Might get away with it. Now, apparently we have yet another fake whistleblower. This is the third one. A guy called Dan Sherman. Mr. Sherman tells us he's been working for the NSA. No such agency. He was hired to talk to extraterrestrial beings, aliens. Now, NSA in Mr. Sherman's case equals no story accuracy, I strongly suspect. No story accuracy, NSA. He tells us he can manipulate oscilloscope waveforms just by looking at it. Now, I'd love to see that. I don't think we saw him demonstrate that. We did see an oscilloscope with a waveform on it, but we didn't really see evidence that he was manipulating it. You know, you can have a probe in your hand behind you. You know, I've demonstrated a similar thing with John Stewart's silly rubber alien video with the vertical line. You know. Anyway. He tells us he can manipulate an oscilloscope display waveform with his mind, telepathically, telekinetically. So we're off to a bad start already, really. He tells us back in the early 90s he was recruited for an extremely classified program at the NSA. The program was called Project Preserve Destiny. Project Preserve Destiny's purpose was to telepathically decode alien signals for the NSA. Apparently these alien signals are telepathic. That's why SETI and every other radio telescope on the face of the Earth hasn't heard them. These telepathic alien signals supposedly describe alien abductions, you know, with the... let's hope they don't describe them too graphically if they involve anal probing, you know. Don't like the look of that very much. Communicating with intergalactic proctologists. Telepathically. Now, I mean, this is just drivel, isn't it? Oh, now they also telepathically told him how they travel. Now, I'm guessing he hasn't told anyone that because no one's travelling around the galaxy, are they? How they perceive time, what they think of humans, and much more. Apparently Mr. Sherman was told he was given his telepathic ability by aliens. The NSA told him this, of course. This happened when aliens abducted his pregnant mother back in the 60s and altered his genetics while he was a fetus in her womb. This allowed him to grow into what the NSA would call an intuitive communicator. And I see. To be honest, I couldn't watch much more of Mr. Sherman. This drivel would insult the intelligence of a cheese and pickle sandwich. He's just another, in my opinion of course, but I think he's just another bullshitter jumping on the ET bandwagon. Absolute rubbish. We're shown an image of a long decommissioned mountain hilltop NATO Ace High tropospheric scatter microwave relay station. Now, to be fair, it looks like an Ace High station to me, but AT&T used tropospheric microwave scatter for links as well in North America. So it may be one of those, because he's American, and he was in the military. He may have seen military troposcatter stations. Basically huge dish antennas, and they beam microwave signals up at a fairly shallow angle, and they scatter off the ionosphere a very long way away, and they're picked up by another troposcatter station. Anyway, it's a really ancient way of doing microwave links over long distances, you know, before they had satellites. So now I think we're shown this image to bolster Mr. Sherman's fanciful yarn. I'll leave a link to the NATO Ace High communication system below, showing us the decommissioned Ace High relay station. Showing us the decommissioned Ace High relay station is similar to people showing the decommissioned Mentork radar station in New York, isn't it? To bolster their ridiculous science fiction stories about travelling out and meeting aliens and all that sort of stuff, you know. It's just something to reinforce a pretty thin story. Now, Ace High was a NATO comms link. Ace High stands for Allied Command Europe High Band. It ran from Norway to Turkey. It was decommissioned in 1996. I suspect any AT&T stuff, any American military troposcatter microwave links would have been decommissioned before that, or at least no later than that. So it could be an American one, but you know, it looked to me like an Ace High installation. But I suppose the Ace High installation will be doing the same job as one of the AT&T ones, so they're going to look pretty similar anyway. Now, of course, Mr. Sherman has written a book telling the gullible all about it. Bear with me, there's only a couple of minutes to go. Now the book, it shows an image of his book cover, and it's dark and shadowy, and it shows somebody wearing a military lieutenant uniform, got lieutenant epaulets on. Now Sherman tells us he's a retired Air Force sergeant. Yet the image on the book cover shows someone wearing a military lieutenant uniform. Now, I think that that alone, just that alone, tells us all we need to know about Sherman and his book. And you know, telling us that he telepathically communicated with two ETs who he nicknamed Spock and Bones. As he was a Star Trek fan, FFS, you know, he's a science fiction fan. He's telepathically communicating with two extraterrestrials he tells us about apparently in his book. He nicknamed them Spock and Bones. Because he's a Star Trek fan. It's science fiction rubbish, isn't it? You know, of course, telepathy can't be proven. You know, I could tell you that I telepathically communicate with aliens. You know, how do you know my story will be any less credible than this guy's? You know, I could write a book about it. You know, show a general on the front cover, and I'll say, well, yeah, I've always been a slovenly civilian. You know, Idi Amin on the front cover. You know, with a door's worth of medals on each chest. Each side of my chest. It's just rubbish, isn't it? So not only is he embellishing he's fabricating all these stories, you know, he's embellishing probably his real military, what he really did for the military. And I think he was he a comms guy or an intelligence guy, so he would have had something to do with troposcatter stations maybe, where the image came from possibly. So, you know, if he's a retired Air Force sergeant and he puts a cover of a commissioned officer on the cover of his book, he puts an image, a shadow image of a commissioned officer. That tells you the rest of the book is going to be completely fictional or or extremely embellished, doesn't it? You know. Yeah, here's I'm a retired sergeant. Here's a picture of me in my uniform. You know, lieutenant. Next caller, please. Put a line through Dan Sherman. Sounds like he's sending a drone to wipe me out. One of the neighbours' kids on one of the little monkey bikes. Okay, so that's just this week's steaming pile of bullshit. You know, will there be another steaming pile next week? We'll just have to wait and see. Be interesting to see what Sheehan and Jim Garrison have to say about not disclosing anything tomorrow, other than they're pushing for disclosure and they need your money and your help to push for disclosure, and they can keep doing that forever, of course, because there's nothing to disclose. No doubt I'll be commenting on some of this stuff next week. Well, if there's enough to comment on. If there's not, then I'll see you again another time. As always, many thanks for watching. And yeah, what do I normally say? Maybe I'll catch you again. Yeah, that's right.